This is Hammond.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast.
You caught me a little unawares with that start,
I did
Hammond.
it just as you moved away.
You sure did. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It is 40 degrees. Let's talk about the weather more.
There's so many things to discuss. I don't know if you know this because it happened about 3 minutes before I walked in this room.
Okay.
But we could start with this if you want.
Sure.
Donald Trump is in Alabama visiting the tornado devastation, the ruins, the area there. And remember when he was in Puerto Rico when he threw paper towels at people? He didn't do that this time.
He threw brooms at people.
And according to a picture that's circulating on Twitter,
oh no,
he's signing people's Bibles. Which sounds about right.
I could have sat here for hours guessing dumb shit that he might have done. Do you have a picture?
Oh, I have a picture.
Oh my, he's signing
Everyone
their Bibles
has
like
a
he
picture.
wrote them?
Yeah, I mean, he's used to taking credit for things other people have written, but this is just
Christ.
so I could just see him saying God's name is very large on here.
Okay, I'm not sure what I'm looking at in this picture. It just looks like a group of people.
Let's assume the group of people even said, "Here's the Bible because that's the only thing I have on me. Go sign this."
Oh my!
Even imagine Obama doing that for a second. They would have him friggin' crucified right then and there.
Absolutely not.
In Alabama, of all places.
Oh my God!
But yeah, so that's a thing he's doing now, as if that's just a normal thing people do. I've seen at atheist events, speakers signing Bibles totally as a joke because no one takes that book seriously there. But for the president, who has an evangelical Christian base, to do this.
Do you think he signs it with that big fat permanent marker he uses to sign everything?
Totally. I mean, if it bleeds through the pages, who cares? The rest of the book is not important to him.
Do you think he signed it on the cover or the title page as if he actually wrote it?
I feel like the only appropriate place to sign it would be the book of Revelation, where they're talking about the apocalypse.
That's a good one,
You're welcome.
Wow.
Just the idea that
That's a whole
anyone else
lot.
would have been I'm going to not sign this, but we could take a picture. Oh my God.
Do you think it was his idea?
I'm sure he thought he was doing them a favor.
Or do you think somebody was handing his... Okay, this is my headcanon. Somebody handed him a Bible in hopes that he would pray over it or hold the other hand and pray with it.
God, that would.
It makes
I
me
hope
so
they
uncomfortable to think about.
I hope they have video of him doing this too.
Oh my God. I mean, okay.
I'm very curious how many of his the white Christians who support him, follow him, always say good things about him. What do they say about this one?
They're going to love it. They eat up everything he does.
Yeah.
Real question, is this better or worse than throwing paper towels at hurricane
It
victims?
is equally useless. At least the paper towels clean stuff up.
Yeah. maybe they're not absorbent enough for a whole hurricane, but it can wipe some things off.
It's just a reminder of how little they actually care about the religious stuff, that they act as if it's a big deal when everyone else does it. Honestly, him signing a Bible, it's one of those things that it shouldn't be a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's stupidly funny.
It is.
But it's partly... The only reason it's even an issue is because if anyone else but him did it, it would be Fox News bait for the next week.
Yeah, this is low stakes silliness.
Yeah. And again, the bigger question is, what are you actually doing for the victims of the tornado? People have died.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there doing what now?
There's 4 bottles of Gatorade that looked like they were distributing
there you go. That should take care of Alabama. What's he actually doing? Because he didn't help Puerto Rico.
No.
So what's he doing in this case? Who knows?
Showing up, getting some FaceTime.
It seems on brand for him. The Bible, I'll take
babies.
it. Sure.
That's wild. That is wild stuff. I'm really glad I didn't see that before we sat down.
Before I forget, I do want to mention this. Next weekend, if you're hearing this podcast, this would be the weekend of March 15th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to be giving some talks in Florida on Saturday and Sunday, in Tampa and Orlando. So if you are in those cities, if you're nearby those cities, we'll post that information on the website. come out, watch. I'm talking about religion and politics and basically this podcast, but more formal.
That's fun. I almost had to go to Miami for work that week.
You missed out.
I know.
You decided to stay in this.
No, I didn't make
cold
any
weather.
decisions.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Wait.
Yeah.
Sidebar. Hemant, we've been recording for 5 minutes.
Yes.
You forgot to wish me Happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day. What are you doing to celebrate? And you call yourself a woman.
My husband's working late tonight, so I'm probably gonna drink some wine and watch Endeavour, which is a BBC.
Speaking of on brand,
a BBC like murder mystery series, and do some cross stitching and pet my dog.
That sounds like a good way to celebrate it.
Living my personal dream,
Yes.
and I don't need your judgment on this day, my day. This day
I
of all
only
days.
judge you all the other days. Don't worry. So the biggest story for me this week involved the Supreme Court again, but it's not the case they were just debating about the giant cross in Maryland. That was last week. This week, they did something else relating to church. Like, this is going to be a constant theme with this conservative bench. They're always going to take on these cases now, or at least debate them. And this time, here's what they did. I'm looking through. They post their orders at the beginning of the week, and I'm looking through. What are they going to take up? What are they going to say? We don't want to hear this. And there's nothing of interest. And then you get to the end of the list, and like, if they have any written opinions about anything, like, we're not taking this, but we have thoughts about it that we want to share with. That one had to do with this church-state separation case. So we've talked about this a while back. But this is a case in New Jersey, in Morris County. And here's the backstory you need to know to make sense of what the Supreme Court did.
Okay.
In Morris County, between 2012 and 2015, the county gave out historical preservation grants. It's like, oh, we have this historic building in the city. Here's a grant to help you restore it, maintain it, etc.
Is this the one that it was for a church, but the church was still functioning?
That's right.
Yes!
So they gave more than $5.5 million to a dozen churches. And their argument in their heads is, well, we're not promoting religion. We're saying you can maintain the building.
Yeah.
The issue is that some of those buildings are active churches. They are not historical buildings in that no one's using them.
Right.
They're being used as churches. And so effectively, you're giving the church money to maintain itself, and this is the issue.
Right.
Do you say it's historical and old and we need to maintain it for the good of the city, or do you say you're promoting religion because the church should be able to pay for that, and by giving them money for it, you're giving them you're allowing them to take that money they would have used and put it into worship. Like, you're effectively paying for their promotion of religion.
And to me, I think the greater point, like, I do agree with everything you just said. I think the greater point is churches don't pay property taxes. So they're not paying into the kitty to get this money back to help. So, like, why don't you save your money that you should have been paying in taxes
this
and
may
fix
not
your
have,
own building?
May not have even been an issue, but if you remember the Trinity Lutheran case from a couple years ago where they said it's okay to renovate the playground behind a church. They wanted to renovate the playground using a Missouri grant. And the Supreme Court basically said, well, they're using it for the playground, so it's okay.
Yeah.
You can't say churches can't apply for the money because they're not using it for religion, even though they totally are because they don't have to spend the money on the playground anymore.
Right.
So the question here is, well, does that apply to active churches that want to renovate their building? So this is the case. Like, an atheist, David Steketee, sued the city of Morris County over this with the help of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. The judge said no, the grants were okay. So they appealed. The appeals court said, FFRF and David, you guys are right. We're overturning it. It's not okay. And so they unanimously said that. This is the appeals. I believe this is the Supreme Court of New Jersey. They overturned that earlier decision. And here's what they specifically said. They said, it was wrong because it was going to religious uses. That is taxpayer funding, promoting religion. They also said, look, it's really hard for us to say, give the money back.
Sure.
So look, what's done is done, but from here on out, you can't give it to those churches.
Okay.
This is what they decided to say.
That feels
I
reasonable.
believe it was a close decision to like 8-6. They said FFRF wins. So anyway, the Morris County and the conservative group that backs them said, let's appeal to the Supreme Court. We got our people on there now.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what happens. You need 4 justices of the 9 to say, yeah, let's hear this. They didn't get the 4.
Oh.
Which is weird because you got 5 conservative justices.
That is weird. Who?
And here's what's not weird. John Roberts, Chief Justice, was one of the I don't want to hear this case. That not totally surprising.
Yeah.
Another one was Clarence Thomas, who said, I don't want to hear this case. That's weird because, like, you would imagine that guy would totally be for this.
So who wanted to hear it?
Gorsuch, Alito, and Kavanaugh. And Kavanaugh wrote this separate decision explaining why this was important to hear.
Kavanaugh's really got the bit in his teeth already.
Oh, man.
Huh?
He's ready to tear down the wall of church-state separation. Kavanaugh writes this opinion, signed off by Gorsuch and Alito with him. And basically what he says is, look, at some point we need to figure this shit out. I'm paraphrasing. He basically says, we really need to figure out what's okay for the government to give and what's not. Here's his argument. They said, we agree that this is probably not a good case to hear.
Okay.
Because the specific rules involving the grants, like, if you're a conservative and you want to say it's totally okay, you can't do it with this case because they broke the rules in so many ways that you can't even give it to them on principle.
Right.
Because it would be too obvious. So they said, look, this case, not the one to do it. If another case wants to come to us, we totally want to hear it. That's what he's implying with his rule. And he also added that, like, we don't actually know, there's not a robust post-Trinity Lutheran body of case law to figure out where the line should be drawn on this. So, like, we kind of need you guys to figure all that out, other courts, and then come to us and say, we're debating about where the line should be drawn. Then we could figure that out. But we don't have enough basis to work that out. But they also said, like, seriously, we want to allow you to do it, but, like, this isn't the case for us. But that's scary because they're basically saying maybe this is why Thomas didn't sign on to it. Maybe this is why Roberts didn't sign on to it because they're saying, like, look, we're not going to this case. If you give us this case, we're going to say it's wrong. And, like, the conservatives aren't going to like that either.
Yeah.
So for all of us, for our side, it's better off that we just don't hear this case and just say bring it on somewhere else. So anyway, they decided not to hear it. That's good news given the makeup of this court. But Kavanaugh's opinion here, where he says, yeah, we're not going to hear it, but we kind of want to. He's basically saying, you bring us a better case with better situations and the rules, and, like, we'll totally hear it, and we'll totally say it's okay. And this is what they're going to do with a lot of church-state separation cases. Like, they're going to find exactly where the line tends to be drawn, and they're going to keep moving it over to their side. Like, FFRF applauded this as a victory on their end, as they would. But they're also kind of like, I mean, they're relieved that they're not going to hear it because that means they win because the earlier ruling stands. But also they see where this is going. And so, you know, plenty of people who follow church-state separation cases are like, I know this is good news, but it's short-term. The long-term
it's
implication
more of a
here is scary.
Stay of execution than it is of anything else.
Like it's going to happen. But so scary. Good news, but not really good news. So that happened this week.
So I have a lot of medical news I want to burn through. So first 2 are going to be about anti-vaxxers.
Let's do the anti-vaxxers. I got some anti-vaxxer stuff.
Okay, so there was a little boy in Oregon.
This can only end well.
He was playing on his family's farm, and he fell and he cut his forehead. Which happens. Kids are idiots. They fall all the time.
I tell my kids this all the time.
I hardly ever fall anymore. These dumb kids over here. Anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal. It's not the end of the world. But this kid nearly died because he wasn't vaccinated. So this was he ended up with tetanus, which for some reason, if I stutter or hesitate before tetanus, I don't know why. That's not how I think it should be spelled. I keep wanting to say tinnitus, and I know that's not the same thing. So forgive me for being an idiot. So this kid gets tetanus, which you hear about tetanus shots all the time. Like anytime somebody cuts themselves. But, like, I forgot tetanus is
it's
like
still
you
a
get
thing.
tetanus.
Yeah, you could still get it.
So this was the first case of childhood tetanus that doctors in Oregon had seen in more than 30 years. So this kid starts getting these symptoms, which kind of sound horrifying. So jaw clenching, muscle spasms, and arching of the neck and back, which I think if we look back in history, maybe people who thought they were possessed were just getting tetanus, because that is a terrifying image of like somebody arching all the way back.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. Anyway, he was airlifted to the nearest hospital. He spent 47 days in intensive care. 47 days in intensive care, and a total of 57 days.
Do we know why his parents didn't give him a tetanus shot?
No, but I do have some follow-ups that you're going to love. He had a breathing tube. Like, he was in rough shape. He could have died. Also, so he was able to, he's cured. He's better. He's fine. It was touch and go there. His parents, and this is more of a hit on the American medical system than it is on anti-vaxxers, but his parents got an $800,000 bill.
Oh, man.
So that's cool and fun.
Like, I'm all for punishing anti-vaxxer parents.
Yeah.
Not that way.
No, this isn't my chosen venue. And then, are you ready for this? Because I wrote it in all caps and bold. The parents declined the necessary second dose of the tetanus vaccine and all other vaccines. Hammett, how do you feel?
Even after the fact. Oh, Jesus.
Dr. William Schaffner said that the boy's illness was a tragic event that was completely preventable, and that the parents' decision not to vaccinate him, even after the illness, was a, quote, second tragedy. He says that the bacterium that caused tetanus is everywhere, including soil, and that vaccination is the only real protection.
How much do you have to hate your own children to not protect them like that?
I think this is a really interesting example of people's maybe fear or dislike or distrust of medicine, even in the face of all evidence. You know what I mean? Like, they saw that their kid got sick. They saw that they turned to medicine to heal him. They saw that he got better, and still can't take that next tiny logical step to say, like, well, maybe a lot of the things they tell me are good or for my kid's best interest, and not some big pharma shill or whatever.
The New Yorker's Masha Gessen, she wrote an article about vaccines this week because, of course, it's coming up in all these stories.
Right.
And what she was arguing is that, yes, there are a lot of anti-vaxxers spreading bullshit on Facebook and YouTube. Yes, that's one reason people are not getting vaccinated or getting their kids vaccinated. But there is another reason, and you allude to it, which is that a lot of these people, they're not uneducated parents.
Right.
They're not even religious parents, but they are people who have reason to distrust modern medicine.
Right.
And whether that's public health, like they see that the healthcare system is profit driven. She said it's opaque. You can't really understand where they're getting these numbers from.
Yes.
She also said working in concert with the pharmaceutical industry, they gave us the deadly opioid epidemic. It gives us the highest infant mortality rates, the lowest life expectancy rates, etc. So they distrust hospitals. They distrust doctors.
Right.
And that's another reason where they're like, oh, a doctor wants me to get vaccinated? No, thank you. I've seen what you guys do.
And
just something to consider. That it's not
and
just Jenny McCarthy. It's not just anti-vaxxers that spread this stuff. It's also people saying, no, I hear you. I understand that you're telling me this. But I don't trust you, the smart people who know what you're talking about.
Because you're tied in with big pharma or whatever. And I don't... Like, there's many valid criticisms to the medical industry, to the pharmaceutical industry, to American medical systems, for sure. I think, though, people's natural and earned mistrust starts to... I feel like this is what we see when you see a lot of conspiracy theories, because I think that's what anti-vaxxers are peddling, is a conspiracy theory. And you see, and so it's similar to like flat earthers and things like that, of people are so mistrusting of what they're being told that they don't know where that ends.
Yeah.
And
which also
when you
means
get all
that
the way,
if we talked about Pinterest, it doesn't let you search for vaccines anymore because they don't want you to see the bad stuff. Facebook is shutting down on anti-vaxxer stuff. So is YouTube. That's all well and good.
But it feels conspiratorial, I'm sure, to people who believe this.
I mean, whatever, they're dumb. But
Well,
even if you get rid of them, even if you get rid of the bad actors spreading misinformation, the problem is not going to resolve itself.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of people who still say, no, I hear the good information.
Right.
I just don't trust you about it. So it's not
And I
just a
don't know
conspiracy. It's people saying, I believe the science, I accept the science, but I don't trust the people telling me about the science. And that's a separate type of problem.
And I don't know the solution.
Yeah, you need a healthcare system that works. And in the U.S., obviously, no, it doesn't. In a lot of ways, it doesn't. And if you can't fix that, you're missing like the root cause of a lot of this thing.
Sawbones is a podcast I mention a lot, and I'm going to once again recommend the vaccines episode. So they do it's a doctor and her husband, who's a comedian, Justin McElroy and Sydney McElroy, and they just go through medical history and like the weird things that we used to try to do to cure ourselves and cure people. And their vaccines episode is like required listening. They don't number their episodes. It's just called Vaccines. It's July 8th, 2014. And I've listened to it, I think, twice because it's really interesting because Sydney is a physician. She's a family doctor. So it's really interesting to hear a doctor, not like a doctor, like your family doctor, talk about what it feels like when people are accusing her of being a shill or whatever. And she's like, literally, I started doing this job because I want to help people, and this is how to help people. Right. And it sucks for people to be suspicious of me for no specific reason. So that was vaccination story 1. Vaccination story 2. So this part of the story actually happened in 2016. So a Chicago guy, he's 30 years old now, I think. His name is Joshua Nereus, Nerius, Nereus. He started developing a fever and a rash. He couldn't figure out what it was, went to the doctor. They tried to give him antibiotics, wasn't helping. And then the doctors looked at him and said, "This looks like measles. Have you been vaccinated?" And this, I pulled the sentence straight from the, I think it's a Tribune article. He texted the question to his mother.
Have I been vaccinated?
Have I been vaccinated? She sent him back a thumbs down emoji. Which is really one of my favorite sentences I've ever said.
Thumbs down, you're going to die of measles.
So this guy, and this story I think is especially interesting because it touches on a few different things, RE vaccines. Measles specifically, because I think we mostly think of measles as similar to chickenpox, like it's unpleasant but not
deadly,
dangerous, I guess. He ended up in Northwestern Memorial Hospital in an isolation room. He lost 25 pounds. At one point, he was so weak he couldn't walk without assistance, and it took him months to get back to normal. And this is how contagious the measles are. He contracted the disease in May 2016 at his sister's graduation from Northern Illinois University College of Business. The Illinois Department of Health later determined that a guest who had traveled to the graduation from outside the U.S. had the measles. He said, quote, "I didn't interact with anyone at that graduation besides my own family. It was literally just me walking by someone." This guy seems like a good one because he is much nicer to his parents than I would be. He was like, "I don't really blame my parents. It was the 80s. They were
no,
like,
it's okay. You can blame your parents."
I know. He was like, "Oh, they were like new age and it was harder to fact check," which I think he's being extremely forgiving.
Yeah.
I would never speak to my parents again. But he says, quote, regarding the current measles outbreak that's happening, "It makes me so angry. My parents thought they were doing the right thing. They were persuaded by the anti-vaxxers. The science has been settled. It's been solved. When I look at where we are today, people who are just willfully deciding to ignore the facts, it really frustrates me. I just don't understand the mindset of people who want to spread fear."
Yep.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Even the kid who turned 18 and got his vaccinations was testifying in Congress this week. Like, go get vaccinated.
Yeah,
people.
so stupid.
It's insane. By the way, while we're talking about that, there was a study that came out this week, which this is one of those things that you don't need a big study for it, but of course they did a big study for it. This is a study done by researchers in Denmark. They studied literally every kid born between 1999 and 2010. We're talking 650,000 plus people. And they traced vaccinations and all that. And what they found is that after the kids got their MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella, they found no increased risk of developing autism. Surprise! It didn't have a link. It didn't.
Okay.
They added there was no increase in the rate of autism among susceptible children who were given the vaccine. Like, this is about as definitive as you're ever gonna find, which is great. I mean, if you care about science and scientific papers, which, again,
not everybody does.
Anyone who doesn't accept vaccines, will they look at this and say, well, now my mind has changed? Of course they're not, because they've already made up their mind. If they accepted science, they didn't need this study to accept that stuff.
Well, and I think this speaks more than anything to the real damage that Andrew Wakefield did when he published that garbage report paper. That
he falsified data. He used a small
data.
Sample set. His results were never duplicated. They retracted it. He lost his
medical license. Yep. So, I mean, he's been debunked and is a fraud on every possible level. But because of his actions, no matter what, we're still wasting all of this time and money and effort to prove a thing that never should have been connected in the first place. Yeah. So, like, good. I'm glad they're studying it.
It's like seeing a major report saying, "Guess what? The Earth is round."
Yeah, it's like,
thank you.
Don't we have anything better that we need to be doing right now?
I don't mind the study itself, but I don't know what it accomplishes in the sense that for the people who didn't believe it before, I don't know what that sort of thing does. That's not a knock on the science. You don't ignore the science because people won't like it.
You can't reason somebody out of something they didn't reason themselves into.
Right. So,
all right. So that's all my vaccination. I have more medical news.
Wait, let's get to this first.
Wait, do you have vaccination news?
I don't have more vaccination news. I just want to step away from vaccinations for a second.
Fine.
All right. So there is a college in New Jersey that it's Rider.
Oh, I was going to write about this, but I got bored.
This is Rider University. They had a College of Business Administration. A woman named Cynthia Newman is the dean of that College of Business Administration at Rider University. And last year, I believe, they did a survey with the students. Like, what restaurants would you like to see on campus? And then later they sent out a second survey, but the second survey didn't include Chick-fil-A on the list. And when she asked about it, the university basically said, well, we took it off the list, and I'm quoting from the news article here, because its opposition to the LGBTQ community and their values do not align with Rider's values. And of course, what they're referring to is that the owner of Chick-fil-A notoriously gave money to anti-gay groups. He is anti-gay. He's conservative Christian. Chick-fil-A as a company used to give money to anti-gay groups. Now, since that debacle several years ago, when it was like the center of protests and all that stuff, people have kind of backed away from going anti-Chick-fil-A. The company does not give money to those groups anymore, but they do support, like, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which is ostensibly anti-gay because it's just not the focus of what they do.
Yeah.
So it's like, take it or leave it how you want to deal with that. The owners are still anti-gay, but again, I have a hard time punishing a company because the owner of the company does something with the money you don't like. I think you can't police that everywhere you go, and we don't. We pick and choose which owners I want to do business with. So I have a little bit of an argument as to, is Chick-fil-A really anti-gay now?
Yeah,
debatable. I wouldn't eat there, but
I
whatever.
don't eat there. You don't eat chicken.
So what am I doing anyway? But again, here's what Newman said when she was told Chick-fil-A is anti-gay, basically. That's why we're not even bothering to ask students if they want to bring it to campus. She responded by saying, I felt like I had been punched in the stomach when I read that statement because I'm a very committed Christian. I am not willing to compromise my faith and Christian values, and I will not be viewed as being in any way complicit when an affront is made to those values. Just to be clear, they said we're against bigotry and hate, and she's like, how dare you offend my Christian sensibilities? Like, she's the one who made that link, not them. So, okay, she hears bigotry and she's like, how dare you insult my religion? But here's the kind of funny thing to all this. She resigned as the dean of that college of business administration. She's still staying on as a faculty member. She's like, I have a position on this.
What?
I'm taking a stand. I don't want to lose my job. Don't make me lose my job. I'm just still pay me, but I'm not going to be the dean because I'm taking a stand.
Weird.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how stepping down from being a dean is a way to show you don't want to compromise your faith and Christian values, but then staying at the school and getting a paycheck from them is okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Weird.
I can't decide how I feel about this. I think the whole thing's dumb. I think
The
that's
whole-
why I didn't write about it.
the whole
Like,
thing
this
is
all
dumb, and I don't
stupid. I hate
mind-
everything about this.
So I think like taking them off the list, I can argue that both ways.
Yeah.
I can understand why they took it off. I don't know that they needed to take it off.
Yeah.
But okay.
I mean, I would say to indicate allying yourself with a frequently targeted minority group is more important than somebody whose religion runs everything not getting her way specifically.
It's persecution that she doesn't have Chick-fil-A on campus.
Fucking idiots.
So-
I hate everybody.
While we're there,
Yeah.
I want to talk about a fun one.
Sure.
I have some good news.
Oh.
If you're in Utah,
I'm not. I'm right here in Illinois. You
but
know that,
if
Hannah.
you were in Utah, they are about to pass a law that will legalize
Pot.
sex outside of marriage.
What?
Apparently, it's illegal right now to have sex outside of marriage. If you're single, you're all committing crimes.
Oh my God.
The actual...
Did they just forget that it was on the books?
More or less. The law says any unmarried person who, quote, voluntarily engages in sexual intercourse is guilty of a Class B misdemeanor, which could land you 6 months behind bars and a $1,000 fine. Now, here's the thing. Has anyone been prosecuted under this law? No, because
Ever or in the last 100 years?
As far as I can tell, no one has been prosecuted under this because, again, if they... it was passed in, I think, the early 1970s. So it's not a 100-year-old law. This is like something they passed 50-some years ago.
Counterculture.
Yeah. But thing is, how would they know if you had sex if you're single? How would they know you had sex? Because they would be invading your privacy, and that's a different constitutional issue.
Yeah, but sodomy laws have been on the book forever. Like, this is not the first time they've tried to make any specific brand of sex illegal.
Right, but this one goes after straight people too, so they're pissed. And so basically...
Not the straights! We've been through so much already.
What the legislators were saying is, look, this is an archaic law. There's no reason this should be in the books, even if we haven't enforced it. Let's just get rid of it.
Okay.
So they went through the process to get rid of it.
Did anybody vote against it?
It was, yeah.
What?
Yeah, people voted against it because they're Republicans. But some Republicans said it was okay to get rid of it. It wasn't unanimous. It wasn't.
I mean...
It wasn't a close vote, but it wasn't unanimous. And now it's going to the governor for signature, and he said he's going to sign it. He's Republican too. But you should get rid of the stupid archaic laws.
Yeah.
Mind you, there are still several other states that have laws that are unenforceable that say atheists can't hold public office.
Oh, cool.
Those are still in the books, but the process to get rid of them... there's not enough of a push in those states to get rid of those laws.
Oh, my Christ.
But again, so Utah is on the verge of making it legal to have sex outside of marriage because it's currently illegal to have sex outside of marriage. Pay your $1,000 fine, single people.
So have you heard about, really similarly, I didn't write this down, but I'm just pulling it up, what happened in Idaho that was pretty similar but different in a pretty important way? So the Idaho House tried to pass a bill that would have prohibited children under 16 from getting married. And it failed.
Yeah.
By a 28-39 margin, it was not even that close.
And what's their reasoning for saying, nope, let's keep child marriage on the books?
I want to find a specific quote.
Yeah.
It'll take me a second,
while
but it'll
you're
be
doing
worth
that,
it.
I'm gonna move on to this other story that's also about this. You're offending my Christian sensibilities, even though what the hell, dude, we're not. There is a firefighter. This is also in New Jersey, which is the epicenter of all these crazy lawsuits. A Christian firefighter in New Jersey. You already found it?
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay, there's two. One is, Brian Zollinger, who is a Republican. I can't believe it. I do not think courts should be involved in marriage at all. I don't believe there should be a license required to get married. I think two willing people should be able to go and get married.
Even if they're 12. That's his argument there?
Mm-hmm. Are you ready for this one? This is the one I was looking for. Okay. Christy Zito, who is also a Republican. She said she complained that the bill would make it illegal for a 15-year-old to get married but not get an abortion. So in Idaho, a girl younger than 18 can get an abortion, but she needs permission of one parent or a judge. Quote, if we pass this legislation, it will then become easier in the state of Idaho to obtain an abortion at 15 years old than it will be to decide to form a family and create a family for a child that has been conceived.
Jesus. So that 15-year-old who got raped needs to get married ASAP for the good of the unborn fetus.
Well, and this just kind of
the thought process
destroys
there?
all consent laws, right? Like, we've decided that a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old cannot consent to have sex with a 40-year-old man because she's a fucking child.
Right.
So I don't know why that concept disappears when we're talking about marriage, which in theory should be more sacred and permanent.
You would think.
Did
you know you can have sex in Utah?
What are you doing? I have never had sex in Utah. No
You're
brag.
missing out, apparently, because it's like a double sin.
Yeah, it's really hot when it's illegal.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going back to this firefighter story. So in New Jersey, Alexander Smith, he works for the Atlantic City Fire Department.
Okay.
He's suing Atlantic City and the fire chief and the deputy chief. He's saying they violated his religious freedoms and New Jersey civil rights law because he started growing a beard in December. And his superior officer said, you can't grow a beard. You're a firefighter. The masks won't work if you have a beard. That's a rule. That's not a religion thing. That's a general safety protocol rule. Specifically, they said facial hair can affect the seal of the breathing apparatus mask firefighters wear when battling blazes. Now, this guy isn't one of the firefighters who goes headfirst into the fires. Okay. He refills like their air bottles. He's on the scene. And he is helping, in theory, when he's doing this stuff. Okay. So he's not just like sitting behind a desk. He's on the scene of a fire. He may have to put on a mask. That's why they're saying you can't have a beard. He's suing, saying you're offending my religious sensibilities here. You're violating my Christian right to have a beard. He said growing a beard is a scriptural practice that is encouraged because many of the prophets in the Bible wore beards, which is a rule that you can finesse it from the Bible all you want, if that's the word. That's not the word. But it's not a Christian thing. You don't have to have a beard. You just made up a rule, pointed to a Bible verse and said, this is my rule now. Don't offend my religion.
Can I give a hot take?
Please.
I hate everybody involved in this story. I think it's kind of like retrofitting that he might need to put. It does not sound like he is a firefighter who needs to go into places, and I abhor workplace rules unless they're for safety reasons that control how you can grow hair or facial hair or have tattoos or whatever. So fuck them, but also fuck this guy. What the fuck is he talking about? Christians traditionally don't have beards. Have you seen any?
If you go to his church's website right now, the pictures of him don't have a beard because again, they're from months ago. But his lawyer pointed to like other cases where two Muslim men refused to shave their beards at a police department. And the court said, no, you can have your beard in the police department because it doesn't matter there. Right. And in another case, like the armed forces, they revised their grooming policies to make religious accommodations as long as it's not compromising safety.
Right.
And again, regardless of whether you don't like the workplace regulations, the justification by the fire department, and I believe from OSHA, like federally, is that there are safety reasons you cannot have facial hair. Yeah. So like, the fire department's defense is going to be, it's not because we don't like his religion. Right. it's because of a safety issue. If you don't like the rule, we can work on the rule or discuss it anyway. But we're not going after this guy because he's Christian. For as far as I know, they're Christian too.
Yeah, that's stupid.
So stupid reason, silly case.
Everything about that's dumb. I hated it.
All right, so let's talk about the other thing they did with the courts, and then I'm done with the courts.
Oh, okay.
One of the things, the reason evangelicals still support Trump, no matter what he does, is, we've said this before, because the Republicans keep pushing conservative judges onto lifetime appointments on federal benches, like district court, appellate court, Supreme Court. They are just shoving through as many horrible people as they can because they have the Senate. They can do whatever the hell they want, and literally no amount of opposition is going to change their mind unless something crazy and egregious comes up. And one of the people they just pushed through, and this isn't the only one, but it's indicative of what they're doing. She's 37, Allison Jones Rushing. She worked with the Christian right group Alliance Defending Freedom, who opposes LGBTQ rights. She also, and by the way, it was a party line vote, like they got her in. Other things she said, 10 Commandments monuments outside of public schools. She wrote that those kinds of lawsuits, like from atheists saying that's illegal, you're promoting religion, they should be tossed out because you shouldn't be able to get legal standing just by saying I'm offended by it, which is the argument the Supreme Court was making about the giant Christian cross in Maryland. They're like, come on, these people are arguing that they're offended by the cross. How are you offended by it? But if you can't argue that a citizen who sees this every day gets the impression that my government doesn't give a shit about me.
Yeah.
If you can't make that argument, you can't argue any of these church-state separation cases.
Also, then, if she says you can't sue because you're offended by something, what standing does she have to, like, have anti-gay laws? Like, literally the only standing they have is, like, it offends my sensibilities. So,
well, it offends your religious sensibilities, or, like,
it
violates my religious beliefs to bake a cake or whatever. She even, in that same article where she said, who cares about these church-state separation cases, she referred to the plaintiffs as, like, village secularists, delicate plaintiffs with eggshell sensitivities, weak. Like, this is someone...
Did she not just say snowflake? Just say snowflake.
I know, right? Everyone who supports church-state separation, we're like, this woman has said very clearly she will never support our side no matter what we say. Like... And not to mention all the other anti-gay stuff. She opposed the ruling in U.S. v. Windsor, the decision that struck down the Defense of Marriage Act. She said that was wrong. She said she has ruled that a Maryland public school district, I'm trying to get this list here, basically conservative Christian judge, hates church-state separation. GOP rammed her through.
Of course.
She is in for life.
Yep.
And this is what they're doing across the board. So even if you don't care about any of the Democrats running in 2020... Elections matter.
Blue no matter who.
Seriously, at this point, again, this is what I don't get with the conservative atheists, which is... if you care about, like, economic policy, that's one thing. But when you support Republicans today, this is what you get in return.
Yep.
So if you care at all about church-state separation or civil rights...
They do not care about you.
Yeah, they don't care about you. So anyway.
Couple more medical stories for you. So this is a small thing. This is just kind of a small thing. So
Yes.
This is a big medical thing, but a small story. So... For the second time ever, a patient who was diagnosed with HIV appears to be cured of the virus.
Like not just living with it, but figured out
he received a bone marrow transplant that intends to treat cancer. He got a stem cell transplant from a donor. With a donor with a rare CCR5 mutation that allows HIV resistance. And the patient's anonymous. This happened in London. He underwent chemotherapy. Like it was quite a thing. This is by and large extremely good news. And Dan Rather tweeted, and I would like to just read that because I think it's important and relevant. He said. This was March 5th. He tweeted this. Many people, including the president, are cheering the news of HIV cure in second patient. You know what? Do you know what happened? Science. Science isn't a goal. it's a process of knowledge, and it applies to vaccines, climate change, and the wonder and understanding of our universe and natural world. Also, Trump tweeted about how happy he is that HIV was cured. He super just cut funding for HIV studies.
I'm sure he did.
Really cool work as usual, Mr. President. Speaking of whom,
yes.
So the AMA, the American Medical Association, and Planned Parenthood has joined a lawsuit with Planned Parenthood to stop Trump's family planning rule. So Title X planning program, it was created by Congress to, quote, ensure that all people, especially low-income women, have access to health care for family planning. Because when you're broke and you can't afford birth control, you probably also can't afford to have a baby. Just my thought. So last week, the Trump administration unveiled that it would prohibit family planning clinics that are funded by the Title X programs to make referrals for abortion. The AMA specifically named the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, and Dr. Diane Foley, who is the HHS Deputy Assistant Secretary. So this is really interesting because, in general, the AMA in the past has not gotten its feet wet with family planning measures. It doesn't.
Yeah, the AMA is not big on taking these stances.
No, it really
They try
isn't.
to avoid controversy.
But this time, the AMA said the move was a direct attack on patients' right in the doctor-patient relationship. AMA President Barbara McKenney, this blatant violation of patients' right under the Code of Medical Ethics is untenable. The new rule imposes a government gag rule on what information physicians can provide to their patients. The administration wants to allow Title X clinics to not provide full information to parents about all of their healthcare options and block physicians from providing appropriate referrals for care. It's interesting. 4 million people receive care through Title X.
It seems like typical GOP action. If it helps women, nah.
Yeah. Leanna Wen said Title X serves women and families with low incomes, the majority of whom are people of color, Hispanic or Latino. The gag rule will worsen existing racial, socioeconomic, and geographical health disparities. Families that are struggling to make ends meet and people who live in rural areas must have the same access to full, unbiased information from their doctor as everyone else. Planned Parenthood would never force our doctors and nurses to withhold medical information from our patients, and we will fight the Trump administration in the courts to protect everyone's fundamental right to health care. So,
well, they'll try.
We'll keep our eye on that one. What else you got?
We last recorded, I think, on Friday. So on Saturday Night Live, John Mulaney was the host. And
this was fun. God, John Mulaney is the fucking best.
So if you missed his monologue, and because I don't know how to work the audio to play it for you, so I'll just read it and butcher it.
Sure.
But one of the things he talked about in the monologue is he joked about the idea of him being Catholic and raised Catholic, and his wife is Jewish. And he said that when you're getting married and it's an inter-religious relationship like that, his parents asked if his wife was going to convert to Catholicism.
His wife is Jewish.
Yeah. And he's like, it's a stupid question. I don't know, Mom. Let me go ask. Let me see if a 29-year-old Jewish woman who doesn't like any of my suggestions would convert to Roman Catholicism. Like, honey, let me tell you about the organization. Don't Google us. This goes on. But I just wanted to bring up this idea of, like, who is... I know this is a thing, but I can't believe this is still a thing where anyone would convert before a wedding. And that is not a new story at all. But the idea that I have these deeply held religious beliefs, I'm getting married, I don't believe any of that shit anymore. I'll tag onto your mythology. Just the whole disingenuous nature of all of that.
That's actually a really good point.
I understand
I've never thought of it that way.
My wife is Catholic, so I got to get married in a Catholic church, which means I got to go through the counseling and all that. Like, I get I'm going through the motions because I got to appease some people.
Right.
But the people who actually say, like, no, I'm taking on my partner's religion, that's the lowest rung of, like, religious conversion.
Yeah, that's not great.
Like
it's not
if
like
you say I'm born again,
Jesus.
it's the total opposite of that. It's I don't care about religion at all. So it's like, yeah, call me whatever you want.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I've never like thought overly much about people who convert religions for that reason.
I would love to hear from someone who maybe learned about or who did that maybe in a separate former relationship or something. But this idea that you could just magically transform your religion like that. Like, if you were willing to do that, you didn't really believe this shit in the first place, did you? And if suddenly you now believe, like, how seriously are you taking these beliefs now?
For sure. It mostly makes me think of Charlotte from Sex and the City, who converted to Judaism for her second husband.
Again, it's one thing to convert. I saw that. It's
Did you? What?
Don't ask. It's one thing to say, like, I'm doing it for my partner and I'll go through the classes and learn about it.
Right.
But to say I grew up whatever she was, Episcopalian, I don't remember. I didn't watch the show.
It's something
like that. To say I'm Jewish now and adopting the beliefs.
Right.
Like, no one should take you seriously on these issues if you're so... It's like someone who says, yeah, I voted for Obama and now I support Trump. It's like, you didn't think this through in either then or now, one or the other.
Something about you is disingenuous. I'm not sure which one it is.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, this is a more serious story, but I went both ways about this, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So in Colorado, there was a high school wrestler who was in the state championship. And the way it works is there's a bracket, like the NCAA tournament. There's a bracket you got to win and win and win, and then maybe you get in the state championship match for your weight level. So in his bracket, there was a girl that he had to face, and he had to beat her to move on. And he said, basically, I'm paraphrasing, he's a Christian. He doesn't feel right wrestling girls.
Jesus talked a lot about high school wrestling.
Yeah, if you turn the page with Trump's signature on it, there's a page where Jesus says, don't wrestle the girls. And he said, here's what the kid says. Brendan Johnston, he says, there's something I really do find problematic about the idea of wrestling with a girl, and it's because he's Christian. So here's what he did.
Okay.
And this is what I'm curious to get your take on. He forfeited the match. And now he's in the consolation bracket. So you could still kind of go far in the losers bracket.
Sure.
There's another girl in the consolation bracket. So he forfeits that match. And now he's out of the tournament.
Okay.
The girls, they get their victories by default.
Yeah.
They move on. They take like top 10 in state, whatever they were at, because whatever, they met the other qualifications and they got that far. Good for them. Here's the question. Do you respect the guy for having the courage of his convictions and saying, I don't want to wrestle them, so I forfeit? Not saying, well, they shouldn't be allowed to wrestle, which we've heard in the past from other cases.
Yeah.
Like, what? This other team allows girls to play? I challenge, like, the sports league. No, he didn't say that. He just said, well, no, I don't feel right about this, so I quit. But he also, at the same time, he didn't let the girls earn the victory. Kind of also, you could argue, took the coward's way out and said, I don't want to face them. So instead of, they will get a victory, but they don't get to earn the victory by beating me, which is kind of unfair to them. But at the same time, what else did you want the kid to do if he felt this way? So where do you stand on the kid? Did he make the right decision, or do you not like his decision? Because at first I'm like, oh, fuck this kid. But, and you know how I feel about kids making decisions and saying anything. I'm not a fan.
No.
At first I was like, no, this kid's wrong. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if he is a kid with these strong convictions, I don't know what else I would have asked him to do, because he did exactly what I would have said, which is, oh, you can't face them? Good, you're out of the tournament.
Yeah.
And the girls get to move on, which is exactly what happened. So it's like, okay, well, I guess you did what you should have done. So I don't know, because I still don't like what he did. I don't like the reasoning for it.
Right.
But what else could you ask of him?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right, just in so much that he made the decision not to wrestle. He didn't, like, I think his reasons fucking suck.
Yeah.
I think his reasons are deeply rooted in misogyny and this sort of I'm sure it was a very like, I was told never to hit a girl because XYZ. I'm sure that was like his kind of reasoning of, I respect women so much. I would never wrestle them. I will say,
in everything I read, he did not play this up as if he's the victim, which I was waiting for that so I could hate him.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. He didn't say, like, how dare they invite girls to play, or, like, this is so unfair because I'm a senior and I was hoping for a state championship and I didn't even get to compete. He didn't say any of that. I don't feel bad for him.
No.
I don't feel any pity for him. He didn't get dealt a bad hand. He chose to quit. He's a quitter.
Yeah.
That's what he should be remembered as.
Right.
He shouldn't get any bonus points in your mind because he did it for religious reasons. He's a quitter. He couldn't face the girl for whatever the reason was. And then he quit. I'm glad he did that. But like, I think that's kind of where I ended up coming down on it, which is you did what you should have done. And I also don't feel any sympathy for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a kid who the world isn't playing by his rules, so he took his ball and went home. Like,
I just wish everyone else would do that too. Like, oh, I can't make a cake for the gay customer. I guess I'll close my fucking bakery. Like, if only the rest of them did that too.
I think this, I think this kid, he's not a villain. He didn't enforce any of his beliefs on anyone else unless, like, there is... It's not fun to win by technicality when you're like a competitive person who is trying to be the top in the state.
Right.
But yeah,
I heard some people say like, oh, whatever, this kid's quitting because he didn't want to lose to a girl. I could find no evidence of that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if instead of a girl, he was wrestling against a gay guy?
And then he said what?
Same thing. I don't feel comfortable. My Christian beliefs dictate that
I think it would be the same. I think I would have the same argument, which is you're still a bigot or you're still sexist or you still hold these bizarre views.
Yeah.
But again, what do you ask of the Christian guy in that situation? You say, well, then you lose. Like, that's what happens now. So again, I feel like I'd be in the same situation, which is I'll judge you, but all I'm asking of you is you don't get to compete then because we don't change the rules for you.
I mean, I guess it's a pretty good metaphor for sort of everything that's happening is like the world is changing and either you keep up or you get left behind. We're not waiting for you anymore. If you're not coming on this journey, then like see you never, dude.
Right.
So do I think this kid is a misogynist? Yes. Do I think he's a bad guy? Probably. But like, yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know what would have been the right. No, what would have been the right move is like fucking suck it up, Buttercup. Like this is how the world works now.
This ain't church. You don't get to make the rules here in the real world.
So yeah, I don't like this kid, but I don't think, and I don't like this kid. I think he deserves our ire. I don't think he's like. He didn't try to get these women or girls ejected from the tournament.
And kudos to the girls, Jaslyn Gallegos and Angel Rios, who ended up winning their matches against him because he wouldn't compete.
Right.
And again, went on to apparently kick ass in that tournament to the point where they're making it as far as they can in the bracket. Cool. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, he had a bad opinion and was suitably punished for that bad opinion. I don't know what else to say.
I've been waiting to see like Christian media outlets try to say...
Frame it?
Yeah, frame it in the other way, which is like, how dare they do this to him? Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that yet. But
because there's no argument to be made. Unless you're going to do a blanket, girls shouldn't be competing with boys, period, which I guess they are not above doing.
No. But yeah.
He made his choice. He made his choice, and he suffered the consequences for that stupid bad choice.
Yeah.
So
that's all I got.
That's all you got? I have some listener mail.
Yes.
This was from Scott. It's not really a question, but it's an anecdote, and it made me super happy when I read it. So 2 days ago was Ash Wednesday. I forgot about it real hard. I literally Googled, when I got this email, I Googled, like, when is Ash Wednesday? I was like, oh, shit, it's tomorrow. My Catholic roots have really betrayed me. So he said some nice things, been a listener a few years. I appreciate your mix of seriousness, humor, and cursing. So he's an atheist/humanist, but he attends a progressive ELCA Lutheran congregation. Do you know what ELCA?
Conservative. is where that comes down to.
Oh, okay. So it's a combined community with a UCC congregation. What's UCC? Universal.
I believe they're also conservative for our purposes.
So the two pastors know I'm atheist and welcome my membership anyway. We have a number of discussions about the overlap in our worldviews where we agree on just about everything except for their God and Jesus part. Here's the good part. They announced on Wednesday morning this week. So if you aren't familiar, if you don't live in an area where there's a lot of...
They're less conservative. I don't know what I'm talking about.
It's fine.
Don't ask me.
You're a man. You can just say any opinion and pretend it's true. So if you're not Catholic or not familiar with Catholic rituals, I grew up in a heavily Catholic area. Ash Wednesday, you go to church in the morning, like you do an early morning mass, and they had burned the palms from Palm Sunday, and they have these ashes, and you get a cross of the pastor. Shit. Pastor?
It's the worst theology discussion ever.
Why do people listen to this?
Has nothing to do with the letter either.
No, well, I'm explaining what the ashes are for. So you have to go in church and you get anointed and you get, they mark a cross on your forehead with the ashes. It's Ash Wednesday. It's what they fucking do. It's called education, Hemant. I'm here to provide
it's a sign that Jesus owns you.
So this church announced on Wednesday morning this week, they will offer drive-thru ashes so that believers don't even have to get out of the car to be marked for God. He says they can certainly do this. As an atheist, I don't have much to say about it, but I think it's strange. I believe enough to want ashes smudged on my forehead all day, but I can't be bothered to get out of the car. And I don't know why that's literally the funniest thing I've had. Imagine, and I'm sure it's just imagining a family sticking their faces out their window so somebody can burp, 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 give them little crosses. It just super made me laugh. I just am kind of into it. Apparently, he did a quick Google search. It's happening all over the U.S.
Well, I imagine
in
all of these
Midwest.
churches are we're losing people by the buckets. We want to.
How can we make this easier?
How can we make this as easy as possible? If they could do drive-through baptisms, they totally would. And this is one of those things. Just stop by. We'll take care of you and mark you. Spread the brand for us. Make it easy. Here's a T-shirt. Go on your way.
He said he would try to get a picture on Wednesday. Please, Scott, please send that to us if you have it. That's from Scott in Madison, Wisconsin.
Nice.
P.S. Give Daddy a pat for me because Hemant won't.
I will not.
Daddy! She's asleep.
All right.
We went to the park earlier because it's 40 degrees outside. So
I
was
a heat
basically
wave.
wearing a bathing suit.
Yeah.
Anything fun going on for you this weekend?
No. It's a relaxing weekend. And then after this, I'll go travel a little bit, do some talks. So it'll be fun.
Yeah. Cool. Well.
And what are you up to?
I'm having a game night tomorrow night that I'm pretty stoked on. That's going to be pretty good. This week sucked, so it's over. So that's pretty great. Just the world is falling apart, and we're all just clinging to anything that...
That's the name of the podcast at this point.
You can follow...
I will tell you what I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Tell me.
This week. On Wednesday of next week, I'm giving an invocation in DuPage County Board.
Oh, yeah!
So that's happening next week. One of these days, I will write that invocation. I'll try to get on that by Tuesday night.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll happen next week. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see what I say.
I had dinner with my mom, and she asked if I had written I said my brother is engaged and I'm officiating. She's like, have you started writing the ceremony yet? I was like,
what?
Are you insane? It's in August. It might as well be in a millennia.
Do everything the night before.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, we write under pressure. We thrive under pressure.
Right. That's what I tell myself.
You can follow me on Twitter at Blueberry, BLUEBURIE.
I'm at Hemant Meta. Go to friendlyatheist.com. Go to patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast.
Did you do the Patreon plug early on?
Sure.
I wasn't paying attention because I was putting things away. Go to patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast if you want to support what we do. We put a lot of time and effort into this, despite how unpolished the product is. I promise we put a lot of work into it. And we are trying to, we've got some goals to try to...
There's the Patreon goals. Yeah. There's the in-person meetup, which we'll try to do very soon in the summer. Yeah. It'll happen.
Yeah. You can go to my Etsy shop at Bitches Get Stitched Done if you want a cross-stitch that has a swear in it or something custom or weird. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.